Now imagine seeing a wild stag at dawn or a badger in your own backyard. For most of us, an unexpected encounter with a wild animal is a magical moment. But this year the government plans to slaughter them in record numbers. Are those plans for a big cull a bad call? Mr. Warren. The government could be about to allow the killing of 30,000 badgers a year, blaming them for causing TB in cattle. Objectors are planning a protest at today's Conservative conference. Animal rights campaigners say that culling is unnecessary and cruel and we should vaccinate badgers instead. But farmers say TB is destroying their livestock and costing them money. Is it hypocritical to protest about culling wild animals when we slaughter billions of domestic ones for food every year? Culling can also be seen as humane. We regularly cull deer to stop them running out of food and starving to death. We also cull to protect other species. Parakeets are kept under control to stop them damaging crops and native birds. But if we're going to kill to protect other species, what about domestic cats, which cause huge damage to our wild birds? In other countries, there's an argument for killing animals if they physically threaten human beings. Elephants and tigers are often killed because they endanger villages, which encroach on their habitats. But in the end, say the protesters, the animal which threatens species and habitats the most is man, and we need to find better ways of sharing our planet. And you can join in by webcam. You can make your point by phone, text, email or online. And John Carmody joins us, who's the founder of Animal Rights Action Network. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning, thanks for having me on.
Well, welcome to the programme. Culling, if it's something that's necessary to prevent suffering to farm animals or to suffering to the animals being culled, isn't it a humane thing to do?
It's not humane, and the word cull is a very nice word to describe what is a glorified slaughter. And in this particular situation with regards to the culling of badgers in the UK, it's very important to remember that we've been doing this as far as I can go back to the 1970s, where we've slaughtered literally hundreds of thousands of badgers. And here we are in 2011, and we're putting our hands back up again, and we're saying, right, the TB is still here, and yet the finger's pointed at the badger. We need to go get these guys again. Surely enough, someone should be tapping, the shoulders of those at the National Farmers Union and farmers across the UK and saying, hey lad, I don't think this is working. Before we speak to a farmer, I just want to get your views. Badisha, do you eat meat?
I do eat meat, and I'm very cautious about these sorts of debates, because the moment you say that you eat meat, it sort of looks as though you're advocating the sort of serial killing of animals just for fun. But I do believe that farmers in particular have a very, very tricky job. They work with the land. They have got to balance the so-called wild animal world with what they have organised for their business. And I don't think that what's happening here is this sort of random persecution of the badger species, but I would like to know more about it, because actually I'm not an animal rights activist at all, and I'm very against the sentimentalisation that happens when we talk about
So if it
animals.
supports farming, you'd be in favour of culling?
I'm certainly willing to listen to farmers who justify what they're doing, because I don't think it's done out of some sort of sense of the exaltation of killing animals. Yes, it's called slaughter. I don't mind that it's called slaughter.
Peter?
Humans are one of millions of species on this planet. We don't own the planet. We didn't create it. We didn't produce it. We are a special, exceptional species in that we have great intelligence and a capacity for ethical, moral decisions. Therefore, that gives us a responsibility to look very carefully at our role in interaction with other species. And I don't think that culling other animal species is morally justified, because they are living sentient creatures. They feel pain, they've got emotions, they interact in social groups, they feel bereavement just like we do. Not on the same level, but they have those range of basic emotions and that capacity for pain. So we have a moral duty to spare them that.
And do you feel the same way about farm animals?
Absolutely.
So you don't eat
I don't eat meat.
Okay. Right, let's speak to a farmer then. Jan Rowe is a farmer. Your cows have suffered from TB. We're talking about culling badgers in order to stop that happening. Will it work?
Yes, I think a highly organised and well-prepared and well-executed cull in those areas where we know we have badger populations that are infected with TB and are close to cattle will definitely work and is very necessary. We're not talking about a widespread cull of badgers just randomly across the country. This is going to be something that's highly targeted, highly organised. But unfortunately, we don't have any other mechanism at the moment that's going to effectively reduce the TB load that is spilling back into cattle all the time.
And what has been the effect on your stock?
Well, we've been suffering from TB in our cattle for nearly 25 years now. We've lost probably 170 odd cattle, and it's cost us probably nearly £500,000. We have experienced culls of badgers in the past, but they were temporary culls, and they did make a very significant difference to us. What we really need is a much more organised and thorough cull until we have such time as an effective vaccine that we can use in a cost-effective way.
Can I get in here? I was just reading some stats this morning, and I was actually delighted to hear that in Northern Ireland you had one of the highest cases of TB in cows actually in Europe. And however, you didn't proceed for many years with badger culls, and yet the problem is now under control, mainly because you put biohazard restrictions into place and certain conditions on the farm as well. And it's a known fact with regards to the culling of badgers as well, is that between 7 and 8 of the animals that are actually shot dead do not actually have this TB. Okay.
Jan, are there more humane ways of doing this?
I wish there were, Susanna. Unfortunately, we've tried pretty well everything, and I think in the long run vaccination will probably be the answer, but it is just not ready to use at the moment. And certainly in England, the experience is that in the south and the western parts of the country that we are testing cattle ad nauseam. The disease is still increasing. It's spreading into other animals. It's spreading into deer, alpaca, family pets, pigs, sheep. We just have to reduce the TB load in the country.
Okay, well let's talk to the RSPCA, because I think they have a different view. Dr. Andrew Kelly joins us from the RSPCA. Dr. Kelly, you are generally against culling, but believe there are circumstances in which culling is a humane thing to do. Is that right?
Well, let me say right from the start that the RSPCA is opposed in principle to the taking or killing of any wild animal, or indeed the infliction of any suffering upon them. And in every case, what we would try to do is challenge the justification and the proportionality of killing animals for any given reason. Now, there may well be some very rare occasions where not to cull may increase individual suffering. For example, the example given earlier on deer, where they may starve to death if they aren't culled. Now, we may consider that to be an option for culling under those circumstances. But in terms of controlling badgers to reduce TB, for example, we are opposed to that primarily because the scientific experts have said it isn't going to work.
Okay, well, John, let me pick up on that point. The fact that in some cases, particularly with deer, it would be crueler not to, in some circumstances.
It's ridiculous. You know, we've declared, there's actually an undeclared war on animals. We continue to shoot them, skin them, slaughter them, experiment on them. And yet it's always seen as being the easy way out. Time and time again, it's the lazy option, specifically with regards to the badger cull in the UK as well. There's an easy, humane alternative, which is vaccinating these animals. However, the lazy way and the easy way out for the farmers at present, and they've been doing this since the 1970s, is to simply shoot these animals. And also, on that point as well, is that with regards to the culling of these animals, this will have to be done at night. These animals will have to be shot at night. They are not guaranteed an instant death. A lot of these animals will be maimed. They will be hurt. A lot of these animals won't die instantaneously. There's going to be a lot of suffering, and this has to stop.
But Disha, in the natural order of things, are we not simply the top of the food chain and therefore the predators?
Well, I think that the crux of this argument is actually what you said in that wonderful video at the beginning, which is what all of this is a result of is the massive over-farming of the land, the huge way that farming has become part of, global capitalism, and also part of what we do as humans, which is unfortunately to colonize, to exploit, to use up the land, to over-farm animals, to over-breed animals. If we were not part of the equation, the ecosystem would do perfectly well, and there would be no excess on one side or the other.
Well, let me put that point to David Taylor, who is from the Countryside Alliance. David, have we brought this upon ourselves?
Yes and no. I mean, we have brought it on ourselves in the fact that we have managed our environment to be the way that it is, so we can feed ourselves, so we can stay alive. But the fact is we have managed the environment, and as a result the countryside is managed and we have to take care of it. So as a result of that, we have to take some very harsh decisions. So the deer that we have no natural predators, therefore we have to take care of their numbers, because if we don't, and we have a duty of care to, but if we don't, they will starve to death, they will get diseases, and ultimately they will end up squashed on the road, because the only thing to control them would be the disease and the roads.
Suzanne,
so if we don't actually manage them, then they are the ones that will suffer.
We've heard these hideous, ridiculous statements from the Countryside Alliance for years. There was a very similar situation a couple of years ago in the Republic where there was a cull of deer planned. Obviously we intervened and we lobbied and we provided humane alternatives, which was again the neutering of these deer and proper fencing along the sides of a particular park in Dublin. And when news actually broke of this cull going ahead, we had hunt groups from right across the country putting their hands up and saying, I want to get involved in this, I want to try, you know.
Okay. I'm terribly sorry.
But people can learn more by logging on to savethebadger.com for more.
All right, I'm terribly sorry. We do have to end it there. We are completely out of time on that.